Welcome to the Best Damn Podcast, brought to you from I&I Music and Podcast Studios in downtown Boulder City. This is your host, Jill Lagan, CEO of the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce. In each episode, we will highlight what makes Boulder City, home of the Hoover Dam, the ideal place to operate your small business, explore world-class tourism attractions, and discover why we are the perfect place to live and unwind. Best Damn Podcast listeners, you are going to have an amazing time listening to this show today. I'm super excited to introduce to you Mike Bindrup and Russ Beutler. They are two of my great friends. I have loved getting to know them, and they crack me up every time we get together, and so I cannot wait till we share a little bit of this today. They are from the Renaissance Brothers podcast, and I know that they are avid listeners to the Best Damn Podcast, so let's get to know them a little bit better. Welcome, Russ and Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
We want to know a little bit more about what is Renaissance Brothers podcast. Tell us what it is, and how did you get that started, Russ?
Well, first of all, we love the Best Damn Podcast. We're glad to be here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike and I were just thinking about podcast ideas. We really have a great time interacting. We've been friends for 30 years, and right when the pandemic happened, we thought, well, hey, we need to do something to keep us busy. We're not out as much. And we thought, well, hey, let's put together this podcast.
Yeah, keep us sane.
And share a lot of great information. You guys are so knowledgeable. And so you guys recorded independently during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And then, so tell us now, how do you do it now?
Yeah, well, we started it off, and Russ was living in Hillsboro, Oregon. And
Right.
So I was in Las Vegas, and so he would record on his end. We started testing it, and then finally he's like, I got to buy a mic, like a good one. And so he bought a mic, I got a mic. I started recording on my end. He'd record on his end, and he'd email me the files.
It's like contagious, right? I mean, you just get so excited. You can't wait to share the next one. And then you buy some equipment, and then you buy some more. And then it just becomes an obsession. I find it so fascinating. I love podcasts. I listen to at least 3 a day. I can't wait to come and record podcasts. So there's something that just gets in your bloodstream.
It's tricky, but it's at the same time, I always say it's terrifying, but very gratifying too.
It really is.
Yes.
I am grateful because I have Podcast Centric that does all of the hard work and the heavy lift. I just get to come and have fun and interview people. So I'm grateful that I've got a staff and team behind me, but it sounds like you guys do all your own.
Yeah, we've done, I wasn't an expert at it. I'd done a little bit of audio recording, and my background's in the advertising industry. And so we used to shoot commercials, and I wrote a lot of radio spots, but I was always hiring producers and people to do that. And so this is kind of the first time I was doing it myself, but I knew enough to kind of get us by.
And you do a great job. It's awesome.
And we've made some mistakes along the way. We interviewed Russ's cousin at one point, and we're like, I don't know how we do this. He was in the Miami area, and we're like, so you ended up buying him a microphone and sending him a microphone and said, just plug it in your computer. We showed him how to record it on his end, and we edited it all. It was crazy.
Well, I'm really glad you have that show.
Yeah, it's been great. I think our first episode was on dealing with holiday stress. So I think that was
right this time of year.
Yeah, 3 years ago. And yeah, it's been great.
And so what made you decide to go with this theme? What's the idea behind it?
Well, we kicked around a lot of ideas, and I think we both consider ourselves to be Renaissance men, right? And so we're pretty well traveled. We speak multiple languages, and we just like stuff like that. And it's all about living your best life. And so we came up with, to live your best life, you really have to be spiritual. So it's about spirituality. It's about physical. It's about intellectual. It's about cultural as well. And, just being able to be who you are, but explore the world. There's so much good stuff out here.
Right. So educational. I agree.
And the last theme is financial, which sort of pays for everything else. So the financial, you don't do it for itself, but you do it so you can do everything else.
Right.
And so that's been fun. One of the themes we have as well is more of a message of hope. And that's what we like to impart every time we're doing a podcast. But after the darkness, there's always light. And there's a Latin phrase that is inscribed on a wall on this reformer's wall in Geneva, Switzerland. And there was a 16th, 17th century Reformation with John Calvin and Knox and others. And that represented for them moving from maybe the darkness, what they perceived as the darkness, more into the light. And so it's called post tenebras lux, and that means after the darkness is light. And that became the theme of Geneva. And if you look on their flag, and even in their stained glass windows, in their city offices, that's what it says, is it after the darkness, light. So we like to just riff on that theme a little bit. Mike and I were both together living in Geneva for a while.
I worked for Russ.
That is awesome.
I was an intern for him, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought some of that experience back home with you, and it obviously has a huge impact on your lives. I wish I had you guys with me when we were in Geneva just in July or actually August after the Olympics, and you and I had talked a little bit about that. I could have really used your insight and your guidance as we were trying to understand and see a little bit more of what Geneva is all about. That would have been very interesting to see.
Yeah, it's a great city. I mean, one of the best international cities, I think, if you're going to visit. Geneva's great.
It's beautiful, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. I think it's neat that you guys have so much thought that goes into your show, but yet it still has a casual vibe and an educational vibe. I've learned some fascinating things, and then you guys got going on one financial show. I'm like, I do not understand a dang thing these people are saying. Glad somebody knows this stuff so I don't have to, but you guys are awesome. And it's such great friends, and I love seeing that too.
Yeah, we met just over 30 years ago. First day of college, I met Russ playing pool. My buddy was shooting pool with him and said, hey, this is Russ, and here we go. And we've been friends ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah. Over a pool table.
Over a pool table,
That's
believe
awesome.
it or not, right?
So what's your favorite part of doing the podcast? Is there something that really stands out to you?
I think believe it or not, planning the shows is kind of fun. We don't always execute what we plan. It seems like we have tons of ideas, and it's a bit of a creative. I think that's where the real creativity comes in, as we sit down and go, what are we going to talk about this week, right? And sometimes topics generate other topics.
Right.
That's for me. That's kind of the fun part.
Do you have any trouble finding guests?
We don't do a lot of guests. We've only done a couple of guests so far, but they've been really good.
Yeah, and we're starting to look. I just moved from Oregon to Boulder City.
Yay!
And Boulder City is such a great place to live. It's really back to my roots a little bit. My grandfather was one of the early workers on the dam here. My mother grew up here in a historic house, and my dad's now living in that. And it's such a great town. It's such a sort of example of, I'd say, American ingenuity and creativity. And so one of the things that when Mike and I try and figure out our podcast ideas, we'll go on to either ChatGPT or we'll go onto the web, and we'll actually find some science behind maybe some of the topics that we're bringing up. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about the why, and then we'll talk about the how and the what. And then we'll have some of our personal stories, and usually a lot of it's at my expense. Mike has some fun lessons that we can learn sometimes.
Yeah, we just had a good one about Russ moving from Oregon to here. He had to drive his Tesla across multiple states, and didn't go so hot. Right?
Oh no, I did not hear that story.
Yeah. So now that one, we trusted the Tesla's navigation. We ended up having to do a 3-hour detour.
Oh no.
And then we were in Tonopah, and we went and visited the Clown Hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's visited that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Creepy clowns.
Super creepy.
Yep.
And we had let the Tesla drive us pretty much the whole way, but I decided, I was like, hey, I need to get out of here. I don't want to stay in the creepy clown hotel. I want to get out of this town. And so we hopped in the car, and I started driving the car and just tore out of there. And I think I broke the speed limit maybe 3 different times. At least that's what the officer said.
What the
Oh, no.
friendly highway patrolman said. Yeah, when he pulled us over. Yeah.
And so Mike was creative about it. Mike, what did you do?
I said, hey, officer, do you mind if we take some pictures, because this is going to be really great for Instagram? And he's like, do you want me to go back and get my Smokey the Bear hat and I'll put it on? And I'm like, no, I don't want to push it too much, right? And it's like, okay.
We also don't want to wait here for you.
Just in case.
So did you know National Geographic just did a great article on the state of Nevada and traveling the state of Nevada, and the Clown Motel and its cemetery, the community cemetery right next door, made the top 10.
We didn't go to the cemetery, and it was like, it was creepy enough at the Clown Motel. I used the bathroom there. That was creepy. I had to walk through the back.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of crazy. And the fact that you could almost pick up wall to wall in that little entry area, right? And so you can pick something up, and the guy over at the desk would tell you a story about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was incredible. We stopped there on an actual FAM tour back and forth to one of the rural roundups for the state of Nevada Tourism Commission. And so lots of fun, and it sure gets a lot of attention. My friend Kat Galley works over at the city, and she's a huge promoter and spends a lot of time making sure that history is told up there in Tonopah.
Yeah, I'd probably stay at the Mitzvah, but that's haunted too. Like,
but I've stayed there multiple times, and I have not experienced anything.
Well,
so maybe they don't like me.
You stayed at the Clown?
No,
Okay.
Mitzvah.
No, Mitzvah.
Yeah. No,
I'm a little nervous to stay at the Clown Hotel myself. I'm not a fan.
It was fun to tour, but I was more comfortable across the street. It's a neat place. Well, I had not heard the Tesla car story, so glad to know that you made it safe. And since it's parked out front, obviously it made it safe too.
I think I laughed for like 3 hours afterwards because Russ had some interesting driving skills when we were in college, and he's improved a lot. The auto drive feature of the Tesla really helps too. So
Yeah, probably does help.
he keeps it between the lines now. You haven't hit a cone in a while. It's pretty good.
Oh, you guys are crazy. I can imagine some of the stories that can come out of you guys. So I know that you have had so many life experiences, and I would love to learn more a little bit about your daytime jobs too. But have you found that with the Renaissance Brothers podcast, have you found that you've had an aha moment that has made you realize, hey, we're doing this for the right reasons? Have you shared something that really helped somebody? Has somebody gotten back to you and said, man, thank you so much. That was great info.
I think our first guest that we had was Russ's cousin, Tim, who he just recently passed away.
Yeah,
real,
so sorry.
real sudden. And he gave probably his life story, I think, in the podcast. And we went back and listened to it, and it was really amazing because he had just done so many things, and it was like his life philosophy. And I think that was probably one of our best, I think it's one of our best podcasts. It was
That
just really
truly
good.
could be an aha moment. I have only heard recently about his passing and learned a little bit from Russ about him, but I would love to listen to that podcast. I'm glad you told me that. I will go back.
Yeah, Tim was a very special person. One of my best friends. We were roommates in college. We grew up together. And Tim passed away unexpectedly at 49. But I would say that we talked about courtesy during the podcast and just making someone's day a little better. And I know for a fact Tim was someone who made everyone feel great, made everyone special and feel just great about themselves. He had that gift, and it really just sort of, in my mind, it's like, wow, that's such a gift. I need to make sure I'm incorporating that into my life each day.
Isn't it neat when somebody makes that kind of an impact for you and the people that surround him? I would imagine, I know this has been very hard on his wife and his kids, but yet I bet you if they go back and whether it's a recorded message such as that so they can hear his voice, what a cool thing, or just knowing some of those life lessons that he taught and the experiences that he provided for his family, they must have some great memories.
Yeah. Well, and most of us don't, it's almost like we recorded his life philosophy just a little while before he passed away. And so the family has that now. And I know at the funeral, you guys listened to it and it was good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Tim's mother grew up here in Boulder City.
I didn't know that.
And Tim spent a lot of the summers.
Yeah.
Tim spent a lot of the summers here in Boulder City with Virginia Arp. And Virginia was a teacher here, I think, for 60 years. I think she taught from
Third grade.
Third grade.
Yeah, third grade. I think she taught from age 17 to 77.
Wow. I know she was there. She was next door to my third grade teacher, had Mrs. Luttrell.
So that was fun. I think when we talk about when we have these different themes, we try and make it a little bit fun, rolling with the punches in life, embracing the horror of change. We talked about investing in our spiritual bank accounts, this last one, which was just about sweat lodges, sound baths, salt rooms, things like that.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
You had another investing one that I'm sure was super important for some, but I was like, oh man, I need to be doing this and I need to understand what they're saying, but you lost me.
Maybe we'll do better next time.
No, you don't have to.
think-
Maybe I need to learn.
Russ is really good at that. We both have MBAs, and Russ is probably one of the best finance guys I know. Like,
Really?
You could write books on this stuff.
Well, so what do you guys do for your day jobs? Speaking of that.
I work for the university system, University of Nevada, Reno Extension. I run the small business education program there, and we provide free business classes for community-based entrepreneurs.
How many small business owners do you think you've helped over your career?
Oh, I used to work for the Nevada Small Business Development Center, and I had over 10,000 clients I personally saw.
Oh, my gosh.
Over the 13 years I was there. So I've been with the university system now 17, and I love small business, so it's great.
The economic impact that you have probably had for the state has got to be phenomenal. I realize it's probably not measured, but can you imagine what those small business owners have gone out and done, not only for themselves, their families, whatever the service was they provided, but that's an economic impact to the state that cannot be ignored. So thank you for your economic development mindset and what you've contributed, because that's amazing. All right. So Russ, can you tell us your fun story?
Yeah, so I'm an engagement manager for Intel Corporation. So Intel is a large semiconductor manufacturing and design company. We make computers that help power the world, help people be creative.
Did you
And
come up with that line when it
No.
goes ding, 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 or that?
I
little-
did
Dun,
not.
dun, dun. You
That was
know what?
someone above my pay grade.
In Europe, it was funny because I would tell people I work with Intel, and they go, who? And I'd say Intel Semiconductor. And they go, who? And I'd say Pentium. And they go, oh. And they go, dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun,
In
dun.
French, right? That's as weird as that is, but that's branding.
Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, it stuck with me. I don't know much about computers, but I sure as heck know that tune.
Yes. So I've been working with Intel for about 24 years.
Wow.
And we work with software developers all around the world. And as it's great to have all these computers, but without software, computers are just heat and blinky lights. And so we're able to work with them and to try and have some kind of influence where we work with them to help their cool innovations. A lot of them, I mean, you look at AI today, you look at a lot of the high performance computing activities where they're trying to find new cures for diseases. We're looking at social media. Pretty much everything these days is run by a computer. And,
Right.
and so we're really trying to make sure that we provide some of the tools and some of the frameworks and also some community where these software developers can get together all around the world and they can improve their own innovative inventions.
That's
And
crazy.
so
How great.
that's what I've been doing for the past few years. I've been working in the field as well. I was leading some of the sales activities in Switzerland, in Germany, and then just all around the world. We have a worldwide team, and it's really neat to see the diversity of these worldwide teams. Everyone comes together, everyone's interested in technology, and it's just sort of a magical experience, a magical place to be, I'd say, the last few years at Intel.
I can imagine that it helps you understand, number one, both of you are so well traveled that you realize we are a very small little grain of sand in this major beach of an ocean. And it's so important for us to understand those bigger pictures and interacting with those other cultures and ethnic backgrounds and understanding who and what they are and the things that make them tick and the fact that you're bringing all of that diversity together. I can imagine there's a lot of energy that you see from that. And it probably changes your perspective on life, as well as just understanding that it's not just what you see on television. There are so many great people that interact and are civil and they work together and they're creating great things for the rest of us.
Exactly. Mike and I both worked for the Nuclear Physics Lab, the CERN. So it's the European Center for Nuclear Physics. And they just won a Nobel Prize in 2012 by finding this element called the Higgs boson. And this element is an element that gives mass to atoms and matter. And that was just so neat. What they have is a large hadron collider, and it accelerates particles to and smashes them together. It's 300 feet underground, and it's about a 16
hold on.
16-mile circumference.
Russ is giving the technical explanation. Let me give the practical.
Something smashes together and it's a good thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah. They split atoms and they fire the protons to the speed of light, and then they collide things with it. And it's a quarter of a mile underground, so it doesn't do any damage to the surface. But they thought it was going to create black holes and stuff like that because it's a lot of energy.
They call it the coolest place in the universe because it is actually, technically, it is the coolest place in the universe. They cool it down using helium to where it's...
Liquid helium.
Yeah, liquid
Colder
helium.
than space.
Colder than space.
Wow.
And they steer it with electromagnets, and it's the beam is only maybe an 8-inch diameter tube, but it's cooled with this pretty big thing. And
Aren't they worried about making black holes in the earth? That's not good.
yeah, but I was the advertising guy from Las Vegas, and I was here, and I've never had a physics class in my life, and so here I am. I'm working at this lab, and I get to go into this tunnel, and you take this elevator ride to hell, basically. Like you get in an elevator, they put you a hard hat on and a breathing pack, and I'm like, what is this for? And they're like, in case of a fire, this will give you 15 minutes of air, and I'm like, Usain Bolt can't run out of that place in 15 minutes. You're dead. Like that's it. But they have the giant foam cannons that'll flood the caverns with foam that'll allow you to still breathe and walk through it in case of a fire.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive place.
It's
I
impressive.
don't know that I would do that. You guys are
13 minutes
crazy.
down on the elevator. Imagine an elevator that goes down
No.
for 13 minutes
No.
and it's open on the sides. You can see dirt as it's going down this thing, and you're like, where am I going? And you walk out. The first time I went down, I walk out and it's the size of about a 4 or 5 story building, about the size of a football field. And I walked out on about, the ninth, right in the middle of this building they're building, and it's all custom construction. It's just really amazing. Really smart people.
Yeah, and it is really cool. They have caverns the size of cathedrals, and then this is a large activity. I think actually Richard
18
Branson,
kilometers or something like that, 17, 18 kilometers.
Richard Branson had his astronauts go down there when he was doing the Galactic with his company, and they were just amazed. I think it actually is. It's moving science forward. If we look at the World Wide Web, that was actually invented by a gentleman by the name of Tim Berners-Lee. He was the one who came up with the case study and the white paper for hyperlinking the internet, which is really everything you do on a web browser these days, and even half the stuff you do on your phone is because of this white paper that he proposed. And I think someone maybe made some kind of criticism of it, but that was the invention of the World Wide Web.
Wow.
And that happened right there
At
with that
CERN,
professor.
IT communications, right in the building. And
That is
That's
crazy.
where I worked. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
That is impressive. You guys, I'm telling you, you guys just know so much information. I would never have known that was even a thing.
But listen, I was the dumbest person at CERN. I always tell people that. I was the dumbest person there. I didn't know anything about what was going on.
But that's good.
I'd ask questions.
The bar's low, and
Oh, it
so you
was
don't have to
super
worry
low.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think Mike and I were both competing for the dumbest person there. I was definitely, when you're working with all these PhDs and you go into the cafeteria and there's people that have won Nobel Prizes, and a lot of them are in their 90s and they're still there because they are physicists. They're high energy physicists, and they're so passionate. They love what they've done. They've been retired for 25 years, but they still go there because
Really?
they love the energy. They love the science. They love the discovery. And it's just neat to see. You have hundreds of people from all over the world working together. And it was just, for me, it was one of the messages. We had Palestinians and Israelis working on the same projects. We had people that maybe in another context would be bitter enemies in general from all over the world, but they would get together. They loved the science and they would collaborate on the science. And that was really where I felt, hey, this is the magic of this kind of collaboration. And they had a lot of folks from America. They had folks from all over the world working together on these scientific breakthroughs and these scientific questions.
Yeah,
That's
there's
incredible.
like 26 member states, and the U.S. is not a member state of CERN, but we have observer status, and we funded one of the experiments. So along this ring that goes, it's underneath France and Switzerland. It's enormous, and there's 5 major experiments that are there where they're colliding stuff.
Why can we not replicate that kind of collaboration above ground?
We do have them here. They're called linear accelerators. There's one called SLAC. And
Stanford
and
Linear
there's one at
Accelerator.
Stanford, and there's one at Brookhaven Labs. There's one in Texas, too, that it's just a tunnel. It's like a tube, essentially. But they do a little better. CERN has been doing this for years and years, and so they have smaller versions of it where they split the atoms. It was kind of funny when I walked to my office every day. I'd see people with nuclear badges on.
Oh.
Radiation detectors.
Yeah.
So I went and asked, I said, do I need one of these?
Yes.
I'd like to maybe have kids again.
Yeah,
Something,
exactly.
Right? And so they're like, no, you don't need one. You're not working in this or whatever. And I said, well, do you have a reactor on site? Like and they're like, because it's pretty big. It's about the size of a college campus. And there's 6,000 employees or something like that. And they're like, no, you don't need it. So I was walking to my office and literally dug into a hill with grass on the top is this cement enclosure with a metal door with the flashing nuclear symbol. And I'm like, I'm crossing the street every time I see that.
Yeah. I'm sure the distance of a street is good enough. Yeah.
I felt it helps. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys have so much knowledge. I love listening to you and just sitting and visiting. And so I would love to know, what makes the Renaissance Brothers? How did you get to where you're at? So, Mike, what was your first job?
Oh, my first job? I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I had my first thing I started a lawn mowing company when I was 16.
There you go.
So, but my first real job, I was in college. I worked for a magazine. It was called Homes and Living Magazine.
Oh, wow.
I got hired as a production artist and kind of worked my way up like that.
How cool. And is that still in production? Do you know?
I think it's called like New Homes or something. It changed its name a little bit over the years. But yeah, I kind of cut my teeth there I'm a designer kind of by trade. And I used that and kind of jumped and started my own design company and then merged it a couple of times and had a small advertising agency that I ran here.
How neat. I didn't understand that was the progression. So that's very cool. So you're always very creative.
And then went to business school after I ran a business for 10 years and really didn't know what I was doing. And then I went to business school. So I was a guy in class who was like, hey, wait, there's a formula for that? Are you serious? Does everybody know this? Right? And so
that's awesome. And where did you go to college?
I went to UNLV for my undergrad. I studied communications, and that was a great experience, advertising, broadcasting, and all that stuff. And then I did my MBA at a school called Thunderbird, the School of Global Management in Arizona. It's part of the ASU network now.
Very cool. All right. So, Russ.
Well, I think I started at McDonald's. I was a dishwasher for one night.
Did you start at McDonald's?
But I think my very first real job, I think I cleaned some buses for a summer. But then when I was 16, 17, started at McDonald's and learned some of the customer service activities the hard way. I ended up going into sales. I wasn't really naturally a salesperson, but it seemed like the best way to earn some money. I did some appliance and electronics sales, and then went to college.
Cutco knives?
No, none of
You
that.
sold furniture, right?
Yeah, well, it was some appliances and electronics for a company a lot like R.C. Willey, back in Oregon, and that was a great job. You didn't have to. The people there were great. I could be honest and ethical and still be a salesperson.
Oh,
and
that's great.
That was something I was able to.
Did you sell the extended warranty, though?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
You? Yeah. There we go. That's
Still honest and
He's a
ethical.
sales guy. Yes, he is.
No, but and then I did go to UNLV as well for a year. Mike and I met there. I spent 6 months in Russia as working for the phone company. So you remember the U.S. West?
Oh, yeah.
Our phone company went into Russia right after the revolution, and we put out the very first cellular system there. And then I had a chance I went to BYU after that, got a French lit degree, went to Geneva, ended up working for the United Nations, World Health Organization, the UN High Commission for Refugees, and then a couple trade groups. There was a group called the Swiss Silicon Valley Association. What we would do is we would take executives from Switzerland and have them meet executives from the Silicon Valley.
Wow.
And our goal, we had a trade mission as well with the state of Geneva. The goal was to get big companies to move their European headquarters from other countries other European countries to Geneva. So I was sort of a salesperson for Geneva. And then I had the same thing. I ended up working with a small company that did capital leasing in Eastern Europe and had a great chance. I was sort of a CTO of that company, but I felt, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, so I need to go back to school. I went and got an MBA, again, at Brigham Young University, and then started at Intel. And Intel's been really a great experience. They've sent me to maybe 45 countries.
Oh my gosh.
And
A lot of places.
they provide a lot of chances to be an intrapreneur. So I'd say that Mike's probably more on the entrepreneur. I'm maybe more of an intrapreneur. An intrapreneur is when you're in a company and you work within the confines of that company, but you still try and come up with new ideas and try and advocate for these new ideas. And so we've been able to do some really fun activities that I think in some ways have made the needle either in healthcare or just in technology in general, where we feel like we've made a small positive difference to people's lives through technology.
That must be amazing to feel like you've made a contribution. You've left your mark. I think that's awesome.
Well, and Russ was like my corporate guy friend, right?
Okay.
So when times got rough for me in my own business, I'd call Russ and go, tell me about your expense account. Like just walk me through that. I just need to hear that. And rough days, Russ would call me and go, tell me you could leave right now and go do whatever you wanted to, right this second. Tell me you can just go golfing right now or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of funny, the perspectives on both things.
And how you guys were able to open each other's minds and calm people down. And I think you guys operate, and even just watching you interact it's an interesting study. I'm so glad you guys are friends.
It's funny. I want to share one quick story. So Russ is working in Russia, right, when we were in college. And so I'd pick him up at the airport when he was coming back. So I was supposed to pick him up. And I wake up in the morning and I turn on the TV and there's Moscow and there is like a civil war happening. So there's tanks rolling up the government building. We're shooting holes in the building. And Russ calls me. And I said, dude, do you hear like gunfire?
Yeah,
He goes,
are you okay?
yeah, I thought there was a fire down the street or something. I said, no, they're like trying to overthrow the government. Like now, you better get out of there. And he said, okay. And so, but I think you'd lost your passport. Is that it?
Something like that. I had lost the plane ticket.
Oh, it's plane ticket. That's right. And he goes, oh crap, I lost my plane ticket. I got to go to I said, dude, you better get to the embassy because this looks bad, right? And so.
Well, they kept my passport. They said, we don't know if this passport's for real. And luckily I knew the ambassador. And so we got that solved within a couple days. And I was able to come home and then go back to college. And Russia's a wonderful place, wonderful people, but it's also an adventure. So
Sounds like it.
That was a time of adventure.
Just anytime you're riding a car, flying a plane, it's made in Russia. Yeah. Adventure.
I would be a little nervous. Okay, so Russ, what would you today tell your 18-year-old self?
I think I tell my 18-year-old self, don't listen to the naysayers. Don't be afraid. And just go out and do wonderful things. And I have an executive coach who was telling me a couple days ago, he said, how does your present define your past? And pretty profound. And how can you create a present that redefines your past potentially? And so I've thought about that. And I think just, hey, have some courage. And frankly, I don't think I'd really change much. Some of those struggles that I went through when I was 18, I'm grateful for them. I don't know if I'd go through them again.
You don't volunteer? No?
I don't volunteer. But I know my brother and I used to, a few times I think we went to a carnival and we'd eat all this nasty carnival food. And then we'd say, okay, let's see who will throw up first. And so we'll go and ride all these rides. And I had the weakest stomach, so I'm always the one in the back throwing up first. And I'm like, well, I learned some good lessons, but I'm not going to ride that again. I'm not going to ride that ride again. And I think it's okay to do that. It's okay to learn your lesson and say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to ride that again. But, I think the future is always bright. I'm privileged to be a father of 6 children and a husband to a wonderful wife. And I'm privileged also to move here to Boulder City and continue some of the roots that our family put here 94 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. And we love Lonnie, so we're so glad you guys are here. And so, Mike, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
I would say trust your instincts. One of the things I tell small business owners all the time, and I firmly believe that small business owners get really good gut impressions, probably 75% of the time. We tend to see things that are other people don't see, or potential in certain things.
Right.
That's what makes them entrepreneurs. So sometimes I tell my 18-year-old self, just trust in your gut a little bit more.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? You kind of think back about what your thought process was at that age. And we didn't have the life experience. I mean, that's why it's always fun to go back and think about it, not have to be in that moment. Because I remember in that moment trying to decide what is the next steps, and so many important decisions that you're taking at that time that will be lifelong impactful. And so it's interesting to think about, dang, what I've told myself. So thank you for sharing those things.
And it's okay to make mistakes, right? And I think a lot of times I see youth nowadays, they're petrified to like live life a little bit. I hate to say that, but they're almost like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to mess this. I'm going to mess this up. It's like, no, you're not. This is a chance when you can mess some stuff up.
Right.
Starting a business when you're like 21, you may think, oh my gosh, that's a lot on the line. No, try starting a business when you're like 56
Yes.
and you got a mortgage and you got kids in college. You got a lot riding on the line there.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we're dumping my retirement into this now, and can this work? I've never done this before. That's a little scary, right?
Right. Risk management at 56 is much different than risk management at 18.
It's all relative.
Yes, absolutely. And so I know you guys both have amazing family backgrounds. So, Mike, what is something your parents have taught you that you carry through and keep in mind just clear to today?
I think both my parents had a really strong work ethic on things, and my parents were like complete polar opposites of each other, right? My dad, you could set the clock by him. Like he was just always on. Like he had his closet literally had, the same shoes in multiple colors, right? That was my dad. Or he had three pairs of the same type of shoes. And it was almost comical because one time he called me and he says, hey, I need you to bring me one black shoe or one brown shoe because I wore one black and one brown, same exact shoe. He just got early.
It was dark in the closet, yeah.
And that's what he did. And my mom, on the other hand, was very kind of fly by the seat of your pants, but she was more, she was such a people person and so caring and constantly helped people. I had an experience recently with, I was calling to schedule an appointment with the dentist, and I was born and raised in Las Vegas, so I called the number, and the receptionist answers the phone. I gave her my name, and she goes, wait, is your mom Esther? And I said, yeah. And she goes, oh my gosh. She starts crying on the phone, and she says, your mother, my mom was a nurse too. So she was the lady that everybody brought their screaming kids to the house that were bleeding. Right?
Oh, right. That's not an ambulance job. That's your mom's
I'd
job.
strap him in the high chair. I'd strap the kid in, and she had this red washcloth, and she'd put it on their head or whatever, and she'd pull it off and go, look, there's nothing there. What are you doing? Quit crying here. And then she'd look at the mom and go, yeah, he needs stitches. You know?
Wow.
That type of thing. So she told me, she said my mother died of cancer, and she said your mom used to come to the house and give her chemo treatment because it was an injectable at the time or something. And she said she came to the house every day and gave her injections and sat and talked to her every day until she died. And I was like, I had never even heard that story.
So she left an impact, and you didn't even realize how much.
Very caring, very, very people person. And so I'd like to think I'm somewhere in between. I'm definitely not on the organizational side like my dad was. You know my dad. My dad was pretty, he was very, you could set the clock by him, but good guy, did a lot of service. He was always in service to the people too. So I think I took away a work ethic and served the community.
I love it. And so I do know that there's a statement that I would like to get some clarification on. So your mom was known to say, don't order steak at a fish house.
Yes. She was very practical.
Okay.
And I'd say, why? And she said, well, because you got to order what they got. Because if you're at a fish place, they're serving fish. If you order the steak, you're going to get old steak.
Oh, got it. Well, she's very wise. I would not order fish, though, at a fish house, so I might be eating salad that night. She sounds lovely. I'm glad you guys have had that experience. Okay, Russ, what about your mom or your dad?
Yeah, well, my parents are my heroes for different reasons. My mom grew up here in Boulder City. Her father was Clarence Harp, who worked at the Department of Interior for a long time. I think he actually helped create the city charter when they incorporated here. So there's a lot of history. When my mother was growing up, she was a natural leader. I think she was the Indian chief of all of the little kids in her neighborhood. And of course, she made her sister the squaw.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So, which was like the lowest thing on the totem pole there. But I guess that's what sisters do sometimes. My mother always talked about making sacrifices and giving the importance of education. So she talked about there's two lasting things you can bequeath children. It's roots and wings.
Oh, I love that.
So strong roots, but also wings. My parents made sacrifices for my education, for my sister and brother's educations. They made great sacrifices. And my mom has always been someone to go against the status quo a little bit. And she has done a lot of humanitarian work. And my dad's my hero in many ways as well. He was an engineer at Intel as well. He always talked about the importance of having hobbies. And so you'll see him teaching. He teaches for the city.
Ballroom dance. Yeah.
He's
Once
a great
month.
dancer.
Yes.
I love Russ's parents too. I gotta say, I love Russ's parents. They're a hoot, both of them.
I haven't met his mom, but I love his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're
We
great.
love it. Well, and his mom doesn't call him Russ; she calls him Russell.
Oh, Russell.
And it's got an intonation to it, right? She never
Yes.
says Russell. It's like Russell.
Oh, it's almost like a question. What are
Yes.
you doing now, Russ?
Exactly. But my dad has he plays trumpet as well at the Cleveland Speakeasy on Tuesday nights, I think at 5:30. So if anyone wants to go hear some trumpet
and
music.
some of our city events. He plays at state of
Very
the city,
talented.
and yes.
Yeah, I think he won the Boulder City's Got Talent one year.
Yes, I
Or his
totally
trumpet.
remember that. Yeah, Ray Turner told me that.
So, yeah, I think that's the thing. Is just don't listen, chart your own course. Don't listen to the naysayers. I got to know Mike's, both of his parents are awesome as well. Everyone comes to the table with different strengths and weaknesses. And I think sometimes when you're younger, you feel like, hey, I want to make everything perfect. I want to have control. And I think life's sort of a process of giving up control and realizing that, hey, I can control maybe half the time what goes on in my own life, in my own head, and then just giving up that desire to control everyone else. And that's one thing I love about where both Mike and I came from, a lot of confidence and a lot of encouragement, I'd say, just positive vibes as we were growing up.
That's wonderful. I'm grateful for the people that raised you and your life experiences that have made you my friends and what you guys have to offer. And the things that you share on your podcast, super important. And your perspective on life. Your life experiences have created an ability for you guys to share information that many would never know about, but also at a delivery level that makes me realize, oh, this is okay. I can handle this. And some of the little insights and the things, your takeaways, beautiful. And so I am grateful that I had you on the show today, and I'm grateful you guys are my friends and that you had such amazing life experiences and family that has brought you to this point. And so thank you guys for being who you are and for being on the show today. We appreciate the Renaissance Brothers and hope people listen to the Renaissance Brothers podcast.
Thank you. You can find us on Spotify or on iTunes and Google Play.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This episode of the Best Damn Podcast has been a production of the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce, brought to you from I&I Music and Podcast Studios. Please check out all the links and social media handles on our website as well at bouldercitychamber.com. You can find the Best Damn Podcast on all your favorite podcast directories. Like us and share on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Until next time, discover, explore, and unwind in Boulder City.